Hello and welcome to Masterworks 2020. My name is Rachel, and with the Scottish Chamber Orchestra and their conductor, Catherine Larsen-Maguire, we're going to explore a brand new masterwork, Sound and Fury by Anna Clyne. So let's begin by talking about its composer. Anna was born in London in 1980 and studied at the University of Edinburgh and then the Manhattan School of Music. After graduating, she quickly became a composer in demand. She's written music for ensembles all around the world, won some prestigious awards, and was recently appointed Associate Composer with the Scottish Chamber Orchestra. Her work has been described as emotionally driven, from the heart, and dazzlingly inventive. She's equally at home with large-scale symphonic forces as she is with small chamber groups. So this makes her a perfect fit for the Scottish Chamber Orchestra and for Masterworks. Her new piece is called Sound and Fury and was premiered here in Scotland in November 2019. Anna takes two other masterworks as her inspiration: a soliloquy from Shakespeare's Macbeth and Symphony No. 60 by Joseph Haydn. So to understand Sound and Fury, we first need to look at those two other works. Let's begin with Haydn. Joseph Haydn was born in 1732 in Austria, and he really is now known as the father of classical music. For all of his adult life, he wrote music for an extremely rich Austrian family, creating dozens of pieces every month. So he really did invent the rules of harmony. He fixed the shape of the orchestra, and he defined lots of the musical structures that composers still use to this day. He wrote over 100 symphonies, and his 60th symphony, also known as Il Distrato, was written in 1775, and it's a piece in which he breaks his own rules, because it was originally written as music for a play. So a symphony is a large-scale piece for orchestra that's divided into 4 movements, but this one is divided into 6 movements following the narrative of the story. Anna Clyne listened to Haydn's piece several times and wrote down any ideas that stood out to her, things like an angry gesture, or maybe a smooth melody, or a chord progression. She then narrowed down her long list to a handful of ideas from each movement and crafted them into a piece that roughly follows the same trajectory as Haydn. She blends her own ideas against his, and sometimes she stretches ideas, layers them, and loops them. Now, while her piece is very different to Haydn's in terms of its mood, it also breaks down into 6 sections. But unlike Haydn, her piece runs as one continuous through movement. So here's an example. The opening of Sound and Fury begins with an angry gesture from the strings that sounds like this. This began life as an angry gesture in Haydn's piece, and it sounded like this. These gestures fly across the orchestra, the texture thickens, and we grow towards a climax and a fanfare rhythm that sounds like this. And that rhythm started life as the first bar of Haydn's piece when it sounded like this. So can you hear how Anna makes those ideas her own? She changes the tempo, the mood, and the key, and then at other times she layers ideas up, fragments them, stretches them out, and loops them over and over. The second section of the piece, like Haydn's, features a dialogue between 2 musical characters. Firstly, we have a military fanfare from the horns and trumpets, and then a rising idea from the strings. Here they are having a conversation. These ideas are both borrowed from Haydn, and he wrote them to describe 2 characters in the play he was providing music for. One was a military man, the other was a peasant girl. So it's pretty amazing that these characters are coming back to life 245 years later. The third section of Sound and Fury is dark and ominous. Anna chooses a minuet and trio from Haydn's piece, which started life as a rustic dance and sounded like this. And here's Anna Clyne's 21st century version. The fourth section of Anna's piece really is a dance, but Anna chooses two non-dance ideas from the Haydn and puts them next to each other, adding some dance rhythms. In the Haydn piece, they were far apart. So we have a smooth, slippery melody that starts its life on the clarinets, and then we have a spiky idea on the flutes and bassoons. These two ideas move across to the strings, with the outer strings on the smooth stuff, the inner strings on the spiky stuff. So as you listen to this extract, see if you can keep track of the ideas as they move from woodwind over to strings. The fifth section of Sound and Fury is where we find out about Anna Clyne's second inspiration, a Shakespeare soliloquy from Macbeth, delivered by Macbeth when he hears of his wife's death. Anna was inspired to include this when she saw an online masterclass given by Sir Ian McKellen, in which he describes his approach to the words. He talks about the nature of time within the text. There are words like tomorrow, today, yesterday, and time. And he also talks about the rhythm within the lines. Anna sees a direct correlation between the rhythm and time of the words with her music. This is the stillest part of the piece. Anna borrows a chord progression from Haydn, which she loops round and round alongside one of Haydn's melodies and some other ideas of her own. And all this is underneath a recorded reading of Shakespeare's text. The repetition of the chords marks out the passing of time. You can hear this section towards the end of our full performance, and we're not going to put a clip of it here because it really works best in context. It really is magical. The sixth and final section of Anna's piece returns to the angry gestures from the beginning. These fly around the orchestra, and we end in a frenetic flurry of activity. Listen out for slippy glissandos, and these mimic a musical joke from Haydn's symphony. Haydn was famous for his musical jokes, and in Symphony No. 60, he asks his players to retune their instruments after hitting a discord. Anna's modern version of this is paired with melodies going at different speeds above, and suddenly this slippery retuning sound sounds not like a joke at all. It sounds much more serious as we approach the end of this piece. So I really hope you enjoy watching the full performance of this piece, performed by the Scottish Chamber Orchestra and their conductor, Catherine Larsen-Maguire. You can find the full performance by clicking on the links on our website, and you can also find more information about Anna Clyne and composing activities there as well. I really hope to see you all again in person really soon. Bye.